What's your body count nowadays as far as leagues? I forgot to ask you before the
Oh,
lights went on.
jeez.
Are you doing the normal thing? As I know, as you start doing more and more content, we try to cut down our leagues, but sometimes it doesn't happen. What's the latest state of the state?
Alan, first of all, I did not know where that question was going. The way that you started.
Oh,
I was like, oh God, what are we leading into, dude?
yeah.
No,
I
but
wouldn't do that to you. I wouldn't do that to you.
I think probably nowadays I'm probably hovering around 10 to 12 leagues. I've cut
Good.
down a lot just because I mean, you know how it goes, man. Like you get into the content grind in season and it's like I just don't have time to set lineups. So honestly, like I've had to get out of a lot of leagues where I've had to set lineups. And nowadays I'm doing some more dynasty startups because, you know, we always got to scratch that itch. But I'm doing all of those. Every dynasty I get into nowadays has to be a best ball setting. Because I just, in season, I'm doing content, I'm doing shows, I'm doing this, I'm up all hours of the night. Like, I don't have time to work all these different things. Like, I can put in waivers and stuff like that. But Sunday, you know, it gets wild, man.
Yeah, I've been talking to the guys at RotoWire, and you should talk to the guys over at Fantasy Pros. One of these companies needs to make a tool that if it's not best ball, well, I know you guys have a tool like that, but that like
We
front
do.
loads. Well, yeah, like I use the tool, but they front load the lineup. So if Derrick Henry in Baltimore are playing
Yep.
Thursday, it puts him in the running back slot. We need
Yep.
like okay, so yeah.
I was like, say, go check out Fantasy Pros tools.
Yeah,
We got it.
no, I use it. I use it. So, uh, same thing. Best ball. Love the startup draft. I mean, and also it's like if we're not in startup drafts, how are we going to talk about values? I saw your article you wrote about best values in Dynasty. It's like
you got to have skin in the game, right? Like, how do you talk about it if you don't even actually have skin in the game?
Yep. And lineup setting has just become impossible because you have to go to Thursday and then you have to go back Saturday because of injuries. Because God knows on Sunday you don't have any time, and then you're basically scrambling. So yeah, I'm there with you, and I'm also not against people leaving leagues. If again, there's a couple different ways to do it. Obviously, you do the pay year ahead, and if you can maybe find somebody, that's even better. But I want to talk about a few rookies in general and some dynasty startup strategy, rookie draft strategy, but players that everyone hates that we still love. And I remember, D-Bro, we did a mock rookie draft, and you were you got a lot of venom darts for taking Troy Franklin at the 107 in a super flex. So, but that was just like to say, hey, this is a guy like, but are you still, where are you on Troy Franklin right now? He seems to be one of the more polarizing players in rookie draft season.
I still like him. Now, obviously, that stock has fallen where I was projecting him. If you looked at the profile for Troy Franklin, it was fantastic. Yards per route run, all the metric boxes we like. But then he goes to the combine, is a little more slight, runs a little bit slower than what people thought. I didn't really care about all that. Like, that didn't bump him down my board. What did bump him down my board a good bit was, I mean, come on, you remember this, Alan. Like, during draft cycle, it was like first, second round capital, and then he falls all the way to the fourth round. So it's not that I dislike Troy Franklin, but you're talking about a huge fall from a wide receiver that was my wide receiver 4 pre-draft, and he's fallen all the way to my wide receiver 11. And that's just adjusting for the draft capital that, like, pre-draft, you know how it goes. You're ranking guys based off of profile, skill set, where you're projecting them.
Upside.
And then, upside. I mean, a lot of that's encapsulated in that. Yeah. And then post-draft, we have to adjust to not so much landing spots, but draft capital and the things that happen in the NFL draft. So people could say, well, he tumbled that far in your ranks. Yeah, man. Like, I still love the profile, but I have to be real with his expectations now. And is he even going to be a starter week 1? I don't know, man. Like, you got Cortland Sutton, Josh Reynolds there. Does he crack the outside? He's not playing the slot. So,
when the first thing that the kind of a joke when we're doing podcasts is who's this year's Puka, who's this year's Tank Dell, who's this year's Sam Laporta. In past, it was who's this year's Cooper Kupp. Why can't Troy Franklin be that guy? He's a 4th round receiver who, you liked. And now you could say, yeah, he was in the 4th round, but wasn't he like one of the first picks of the 4th round? And I mean, he was up there. He was up there. And by the way, how many picks did Denver really have, right? They didn't have a ton of picks. So you can't, you've heard the narrative saying, hey, Jalen Wright, the running back of Miami, he's not really a 4th round running back because Miami used their 3rd next year.
402 to your point.
So. Right. So, I mean, why are we drawing that arbitrary line? Like, hey, after 3.32, that means you're not good. I mean, why isn't the line at 1.20? So the draft capital thing, I think we figure into it, but do we over count it? Do you believe?
I mean, I think some people do. I'm not necessarily in my ranks. I think he falls into a bucket. Like, I have him in a bucket of guys that I love. And when I want to give context to that. So wide receiver 11 in my rankings post-draft for rookies, he's hugged up right next to Javon Baker, Luke McCaffrey, but I have him ahead of Keon Coleman. I have him ahead of Roman Wilson. I still have him ahead of Adonai Mitchell and Jalen Polk. So for me, it's still a strong ranking. Like, for me, I agree with you. I think some people overweight the draft capital, but in my ranks, I'm still standing and making a stance on the profile that I still really like this guy, especially when you look at the guys that I have him ranked ahead of that got better draft capital.
Yeah, I want to stick with Troy Franklin for a second because he's an important player because, you don't have to pay up for him. You can get him, basically take him any pick in the second round, which, it doesn't matter if you have 2.5. It doesn't matter if you have 2.10.
He's fallen to the third in a lot of drafts.
Right.
Too.
But I'm saying if you want him, you have to take him with your second pick. You don't want to roll the dice if you definitely want him. So I'm one of the guys that wrote him off. I said fourth round. That's BS. I don't want him. But does he rebound a little bit now because of the landing spot? I know you said landing spot is just kind of contextual, but you have the narrative with Bo Nix. When Sean Payton likes a guy, he went and, I mean, that's his guy now, right? It's his draft pick. Mm-hmm. So is to get a little bit of a rebound. I mean, I still see him go in the late second round, D-bro.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still willing to bet on the profile. And kind of like what you were talking about, Alan, is if we believe that talent kind of trumps and the cream rises to the top and guys are going to play themselves, if the talent is actually real, then does the talent work its way up the depth chart? And that's basically what I'm saying with my ranks of Javon Baker and Troy Franklin. I think that can definitely happen. And the landing spot is not damning. I mean, Marvin Mims didn't really pop in his rookie season, so are we that scared of him? Josh Reynolds, we know who he is. Cortland Sutton is an aging ex-receiver, and he'll have his role, but is there anybody on that depth chart right now? Like, anybody, legitimately anybody that can earn a 23-25% target share? There's not. I don't see anybody. Yeah. So there's still a path to be had for Troy Franklin. So I'm still willing to take the shots, especially, I mean, I'm stating that in my ranks based off of who I have him above. So I'm still a believer in the talent, and the landing spot is not terrible.
You mentioned the combine a moment ago and that you liked the profile and he didn't test well. Which one of the drills is the most, if you had to pick one drill that you pay attention to that really translates into the NFL, what is it and why?
I would say for wide receivers.
Yeah, for receivers.
For receivers, that is the one position, and I'll cover this with a wide blanket statement. Wide receivers is the one position that I'm not saying is least tied to athleticism, but I'm just looking for guys to hit benchmarks. Like, don't go out there and run a 4.8. Don't go out there and just totally bomb the combine. Like, for me, wide receiver is so much more of a nuanced role and position, and there's so much that goes into it outside of just the ability to run in a straight line fast. So, like, when guys come out and they test amazing, like Adonai Mitchell, and they're like, oh, you see the ability of Brian Thomas Jr., and I'm like, okay, but do you see the lack of route running chops? Like, that matters. That's what shows you guys can get open or not. If I were to point to any testing metric that I think probably holds a little bit of water as far as wide receivers, it's probably the short area agility stuff, because that's what you need to separate in your routes. That ability to gear down on a comeback, that ability to separate for the cornerback in tight spaces. So do I care about, like, again, you brought up the name Puka Nacua, like, everybody's like, well, he's not a great athlete. He didn't test great. I don't really give a shit. Like, right. The NFL is littered with guys where we were like, oh, well, the test, like T. Higgins, Cooper Kupp,
yeah.
All these guys where you're just like, well, he didn't test out the gym, because guess what? Wide receiver matter. Like, there are more things that matter than your ability to run 4.3 speed in a straight line.
Yeah, and that's really what I've been getting at, because I had this gut feeling, the suspicion that we're overrating and listen, the combine is fun because people are into it. Like, anything people are into, and it makes for great discussions and debate and that. But
they can double count and they can verify those priors. Like, I thought the guy was fast. He is fast.
Right.
Now he's super fast. Like,
right.
I mean, like,
it's confirmation bias, right?
Exactly.
That's really so. Who do you think is the most overhyped rookie this year? I mean, I've done at least 14 or 15 rookie drafts. There's a couple guys that people are pushing each other out of the way to get here. I mean, no matter where they go in rookie drafts, which one do you think? And when I say overhyped, meaning like there's a little bit more buzz than there probably will. And in week 6, they're going to be like,
Keon Coleman. That's the easy answer. I mean, sexy landing spot. Everybody's like, oh, they need a wide receiver. And I'm just like, I don't see this guy becoming a high-end target share earner. Like, is he going to serve a role? Does this create the basketball team for Buffalo? Because you're trying to build out a wide receiver room of varied skill sets. Like, you want somebody that can stretch the field, open it up. You want somebody that can beat too high, beat zone coverage, play the slot, things like that. It's like the thing they were missing in that wide receiver room was somebody with size that can play the X, can play the outside, can be a red zone threat. And I think Keon Coleman, look, I love the landing spot too, but that's not changing the evaluation on the player that I had going into it. Like, I still think he's a very raw prospect. He's got a lot to learn and still hone in the NFL with his route running. I think that there is talent there, but you stack him up against all these other wide receivers and the Buffalo landing spot. It's like, we're getting kind of out over our skis. Like, I mean, you could see that in ADP. And when you get to this long second tier of wide receivers, like that long bucket, you know what I'm talking about, Alan? That long bucket of guys that all went within the first round or the second round of the NFL draft, and everybody's like, and really just becomes like you walk into the ice cream shop and it's like, okay, pick your flavor. Which guy do you like? Do you a Ricky Pearsall guy? Do you like Brian Thomas Jr., Keon Coleman? Ooh, there's Xavier Legette. Can I get 2 scoops? Like, that's kind of where it goes.
Lad McConkey. I mean, the first podcast I was on during the draft, they asked me like, who are you going to take, Lad McConkey or Keon Coleman? I'm like, I don't know, whatever one I feel like on that day. I have no idea. Like, I don't know if I'm, like you said, the ice cream shop. Some days I feel like mint chocolate. Actually, mint sucks for ice cream.
I was going to say, please don't do that. Maybe I'm going to upset some people watching this live, but mint and chocolate is the worst marriage of tastes ever. And I'm going to encapsulate just one statement. Would you ever brush your teeth and then eat chocolate? If you're going to tell me yes, one, I can't even talk to you. And 2, no, nobody ever says yes to that question. So why in the hell do you want mint chocolate? Why is that a thing, man?
I mean, mint chocolate, pineapple, and pizza. I mean, these are weird people, man.
I can't. My taste buds will revolt.
Yeah, I have more respect for anyone who puts anchovies on pizza than they do pineapple. And I'm not an anchovy guy, obviously. Who is? Yeah. Good tangent. Oh, yeah. So anyway, point is, I don't know if I'm going to love caramel, butterscotch, chocolate, vanilla when you come in. I like the reference because the point is everyone loves ice cream, but you just never know what you're going to be in the mood for here.
What's your favorite flavor? I got to ask now. My brain is percolating now.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to be on an island, I just want to go vanilla because I'll never get sick of it. But if I like exotic flavors, it's definitely something with like caramel or something like that.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite?
Oh, easy. Chocolate chip cookie dough is 101.
All right. Well, you win because that is the answer.
So good.
That is the answer.
Not even getting into like subspecialties. Like they used to have king cake ice cream, and then they have like
birthday cake,
ooey gooey butter cake ice cream, which is freaking fantastic. Go pick it up, people. But it's cookie dough, man. Like I'm not getting too cute with it. That's the 101. Can't fight it.
Yep. And you know what? I will come over to that side because I do agree with that. Back to some rookies that we love and you hate. Where are you at on Roman Wilson for fantasy football, specifically given the Arthur Smith situation? We'll start, you know what? I want you to go back in history because a lot of people coming in to watch the RotoWire Dynasty podcast, they haven't been in the weeds since February. A lot of us have, but they're coming in. So where did you start on Roman Wilson, the wide receiver out of Michigan? And now post-draft, where are you going to be and his reasonable projection for fantasy football?
I liked his profile coming out. I didn't love his profile coming out. Like, he was a guy that I always felt was in that wide receiver 10 to 15-ish bucket for me, somewhere in the teens. And this is not really so much a slight at Roman Wilson. It's just, I like the archetype in the sense, like, I think he's going to be a good separator. He's a good route runner. We saw him test fantastically. And I think the explosiveness, you see a jump off the film, and it really popped in his metrics, like 29th in yards per route run, 22nd in PFF receiving grade last year. The concerns that I have, or I guess, like, as far as his skill set, I think with his size, with his role in the NFL, I don't know if he's ever going to be a major red zone contributor. And
right. He's got to do it with PPR. He has
yeah,
to.
I mean, he's going to have to do it with big plays is what it's going to come down to. So, like, really, that type of archetype of wide receiver, you're probably capping yourself somewhere around like 5 to 7 touchdowns a year. So that naturally is going to cap some of his upside. Then you look at the landing spot. I mean, look, there's an easy path for him to carve out. Like, after George Pickens, it's a bunch of mid wide receivers on that roster. Like, I liked Calvin Austin when he has come out. He hasn't done anything to this point. Van Jefferson, we know who he is.
Yeah, they brought over all the Atlanta Falcons scrubs from Scotty Miller. They brought them all
Patterson,
over.
like Arthur Smith. I mean, sometimes these jokes just write themselves. But with Roman Wilson, I think it really comes down to, I don't see with his archetype, like, he's not an amazing after the catch guy. Like, is he fast and does he have good hands? Yes. I just look where his archetype is, and he probably settles in on most NFL depth charts. Now, he's being elevated because of Pittsburgh doesn't really have anybody ahead of him besides George Pickens, but on most NFL depth charts, we're talking about a wide receiver that probably settles in as like the wide receiver 3 in a starting lineup for NFL teams for most years. So I don't think he really has like that alpha profile. So,
but sometimes, D-Bro, don't you need to hit like a double in fantasy? Like, you see these crazy leagues where you have to start 11, 12, 13 guys, and you're like starting Nelson Aguilar in that third flex. I mean, you have to make a pick at the 3-1, the 2-11. It's a non-sexy pick. That's why I brought him up specifically, because he's not exciting. Nobody likes Roman Wilson for fantasy football.
Well, I guess when I'm taking those late shots on guys that I think can ascend, and that's where I kind of go back to looking at archetypes and looking at the range of outcomes for players. Like, do I ever see an iteration where probably Roman Wilson is a wide receiver 1 for an NFL team? No, probably not. But in my mind's eye, could I see that for somebody like Javon Baker? Yes. So that's why I'll kind of reorder the tiers based off of what I think the skill set is. And I mean, not even just talking about Arthur Smith, like, how many times have we seen him ruin top draft picks and guys that have even more talent than Roman Wilson? So just looking also at that, how that Pittsburgh offense is going to be composed this year, they're probably going to run like crazy in the red zone. They're probably not going to throw a ton. So it's kind of like, what are his outs to really surpass my expectations for the next 2 years, really? I mean, well, he's not going to get a ton of volume. The quarterback play we're kind of have big questions about. He's probably not going to be a major touchdown producer, even if they were to feature him in the red zone, which they're not. They're going to feature the quarterbacks and the running backs in the red zone. So I just look at him as, unfortunately, a capped player based off the situation and some of the skill set and archetype stuff.
Is he a safe player? Like, can he get 10 fantasy points a game in his rookie season? Or is that an optimistic? Like,
that's probably the optimistic look. I think he's probably a little bit lower than that, probably 9-ish, mate.
Yeah, which makes a difference. It does make a difference. You know, you do.
Like, he's probably in that wide receiver 4 or 5 bucket this year.
Man, that's sobering right there. Would you rather have a player like Ray Davis, the running back on Buffalo, just for fantasy football? Just say in a 1-year window here, who do you think will have more value this time next year, Ray Davis or Roman Wilson?
I'll take Roman Wilson. I think Ray Davis is getting puffed. You want to talk about a guy that I think is getting puffed up. I think, like, and I'm not saying that Ray Davis isn't going to have a role or that I dislike Ray Davis, but I do think that the Buffalo landing spot is cashing him some checks that he doesn't really deserve as far as the prospect profile and all those types of things. So I'll take Roman Wilson. I'm going to take the shot on him.
Yeah, I mean, you're anti-Buffalo. You don't like Keon Coleman. You don't like Ray Davis.
I love Dalton Kincaid.
Wide receiver, tight end 1 this time next year, right?
I mean, I think that, look, you're looking at my ranks over on fantasypros.com. I've got him. He is in the top 3 for tight ends. I want to say I have him at tight end 3. Yeah, I do. Right behind McBride and Laporta. So I think the upside is there. He's the wide receiver 1 in Buffalo this year. And
no hard take, right? Like, that's a tier. The McBride,
Laporta,
right?
I mean, tier.
if you were in a dynasty startup draft and someone took Kincaid as the first tight end off the board, you'd be like, oh yeah, fine, no problem.
I wouldn't care. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it to me, that tippy top of young tight ends and stuff. And as far as dynasty rankings, he's still my tight end 3, right behind Laporta and McBride. So I have no issues with that. I love Kincaid, the player.
Let's continue talking about rookies that you hate, and that's the proverbial you. We love these clickbait.
The royal you.
Yeah, the royal you and the royal us. Rookie tight ends. Brock Bowers, man, he seemed like he just shot up. Everyone like, oh, Brock Bowers is the next great tight end, but meanwhile, even in a lot of dynasty startup drafts, he goes at 108. If the market was that strong on him, I mean, is the landing spot the deterrent here? I thought the landing spot was pretty good. I mean, what were you expecting? If he was on the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, that would have been better. The Colts with 17 tight ends. So where are you on Brock Bowers, and why do you think that the market, quote, hates him? And then what I mean by hate is he's not going at the 103 in these drafts. So what's the hate? Or where are you, I should say, is a better question on Brock Bowers.
I still love the talent of Brock Bowers. I was one of the, I was not a fan of the landing spot only because Devontae Adams is still a proven target hog. And you have Jacoby Myers. He's no slouch either. The quarterback play, it just straight up sucks. And I'm old enough to remember like how bad Luke Getsy is at calling plays. So I just don't have a lot of faith. This has nothing to do with the talent of Brock Bowers. And people want to take shots. Like, look, you could make the case for Brock Bowers as early as the 107, I think. Like, I'm not taking him over and talking about Superflex. Like, I'm not taking him over Rome. There's no way in hell I'm taking over Rome Odunze. So, like, I think that the conversation for me starts at 107. Now, I do have him at 109 in my ranks only because of Superflex. I'll take Drake Maye. I'll actually take Jonathan Brooks over him.
That's the one. Brooks. Okay. So Brooks, because Maye is the quarterback, you should take him over the tight end. So it's Brooks is the one that you're pushing ahead of Bowers in your personal rank. Okay. That's an interesting call. RB1, that's just an RB1 over a tight end thought process.
No, I mean, it comes down to, Brooks, I'm immensely high on. Like, I have him as my RB9 in Dynasty right now. Like, he's set to be like a total bell cow, man. Like, we've seen what Dave Canellis does. And this is not only just a Rachaad White take. You go back to Seattle the previous year, Kenneth Walker ranked 13th in opportunity share. So he was even a workhorse, even if you want to go like, full-blown bell cow. But Brooks is going to be there, man. Like, there's nobody on that roster to stop him from being a bell cow. Health is the only thing that's going to hold him back in the early going. Carolina, we could say what we want to about the situation in the landing spot. Rachaad White showed last year that crap didn't matter. Tampa Bay had a terrible offensive line. Volume is king in fantasy. And Brooks, he got the capital. He has the ability. And they've done nothing but talk up how they want to use him, his skill set, their belief in running their offense through one running back. So Brooks, I just look at him and he's the cheapest RB1 like ever you can get right now in Dynasty. And it's the landing spot. It's the sweeping narrative that people push the entire time. And I wasn't out there saying like this running back class is so freaking amazing, but I was like, there are a lot of talented running backs, and really I think the Dynasty community as a whole got way out over its skis and saying this running back class sucks so much that people didn't want to backtrack and say, holy crap, well, now we have a running back that landed in a plum spot, got second round capital, and he said as soon as he's healthy to be a freaking bell cow. So I love Brooks.
Yeah, and the injury too. You just the ACL injury. What was it, like November? That pushes him down too. People don't like drafting into an injury with their first pick, but that seems to have gone away. I remember when rookie draft season started back in like February. Started up February, like right after the NFL draft in April, May. That he was going in the mid-second, and now it's like he doesn't get out of the first round, and nobody would be shocked if he goes as high as the 109. It's very interesting that you have him at the 108. So in your just overall Dynasty rankings, Brooks is RB what?
He's RB9.
Okay, and who's the two behind him in your ranks?
I've got Joe Mixon, and he's got 2-year contract certainty.
Interesting.
And honestly, I've got Derrick Henry as my RB11 in Dynasty.
I love that. So okay, Debro, come here. Let me kiss you. Come here. Let me kiss you. Come on. There you go. Go ahead.
I mean, dude, here's the thing. It's kind of like Travis Kelce and it's like he's been an outlier his entire career until he hangs up his cleats. he's going to keep producing as an RB1 in fantasy. And so I'm not willing to am I making a statement with that in dynasty ranks? Do people hate running backs when they get older? Sure. Show me a metric where Derrick Henry is not still top of the hill as far as efficiency stuff.
His yards per carry. Come on, man. It went from 5 to 4.7.
Running behind a bottom 5 offensive line.
Right.
With terrible quarterback play last year.
And I'm mocking is because, anyway, I had Derrick Henry's high school coach on this podcast, and he was telling, it was awesome. The guy was great. And he was saying that, there was games where he famously gave him 55 carries. And he said that, people were coming up to him in the community saying that's child abuse. You're giving a player. And he goes, okay, you come on the sideline. When I try to take this guy out of the game, he's like literally ready to fight me and everyone else saying, give me another. He's just different human being. Latavius Murray, no one thinks he's like the greatest running back of all time. He lasted till 34 years old. Some guys are just built differently for the NFL game. And in Dynasty startup draft, Superflex format, D-Bro, you can get Derrick Henry in the 7th or 8th round, man. You
get him super cheap, man. So, my thing is I just wanted to stay ahead of market. And 2, it really comes down to there's just like you talked about, there's some guys that are outliers, and until they hang up the cleats, they're going to keep freaking producing. It just happens. All
right. We're going to just let everybody know that this podcast right here is brought to you by PrizePicks. You've seen PrizePicks on every. You play little PrizePicks where you are? What state are you in?
Of course. Texas.
Yep. You're in Texas. Yep. PrizePicks is there.
Our made code, a lot of good money off the NFL Combine props. Thank you, PrizePicks.
What was your best one? The one that you're most proud of? That you could think which player?
I want to say it was betting the over on a few.
No. It's the
40s.
more. It's the more.
Yeah, more. Excuse me, over.
Cannot say that.
More.
You get a verbal smack if you say that,
True.
Get because of all the quote the gambling terms.
Well, I played more for the fantasy lineup, right? That's what we're going.
Yep, you go more or less. That's what it is on PrizePicks. I love it. Our code is RotoPod. Double your deposit up to $100. And also, this podcast is brought to you by Circa Las Vegas. Have you been out to Las Vegas? Ever, I should say. And also, have you stayed at Circa while you've been out there?
I have not stayed at Circa. I have been to Vegas a few different times, and it's always a very, very... Actually, I have a few different tats that I got while not necessarily sober in Vegas.
Let's see it. Let's see one right now.
One of them, we went with some friends and stuff, so I got a suit of cards, so I got a spade on my wrist.
Okay.
Woke up the next morning and then realized that I had gotten that. It was a good time. Good time. You know what they say, whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but there are some things you bring home. So
let's see. So you got that. So only one tattoo in Vegas while you were blacked out drunk?
Yes, one tattoo when I was in Vegas, blacked out drunk. I got another one, which is on my back. Which
a tramp stamp.
Oh no, don't you? No. I never said that, Alan. I never said.
It's on your lower back. It's Chinese writing with wings.
Yeah, it means exit. But yeah, no, it's no, dude.
That's great.
I would never.
Please enter.
I would never get a tramp stamp tattoo. I would get a back piece, but I would never just get an isolated tramp stamp tattoo. Not without getting paid very handsomely for it. I'll say that. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Oh, you would do it for money? All right. Let's get. You know what? Here's our first. Here's our first tip of the day right here. This guy wants to pay for your tramp, and we're going to do it live on this podcast. All right, we'll help Tyler out here. And we'll come back and talk about Circa in a minute here. But Tyler has a 12-team Superflex, 2 tight end premium, double PPR. Ooh. So just so you know, D-Bro, in double tight end premium, David Njoku outscored CJ Stroud last year. So keep that in mind. Yeah, by 1 point. This is a start 10. So Purdy, Levis, Rodgers, Brees, Henry, I'm assuming King Henry, Kamara, Stevenson, Tyreek, Christian Watson, Roman Wilson, Andrews Pitts, 3 25 first, and 8. This is getting crazy.
Good Lord.
8 seconds sent Chase for Purdy, Pitts, and 2 seconds. Couldn't get into the elites. Okay. So basically, let's just break this down here.
I was like, where does the trade start and where does it end? Like this feels like a stream of consciousness right now.
Yeah. I'm just gonna read names until you fall asleep, D-Bro. Okay. All right. Now here's the trade. So he sent away Jamar Chase and he got back Brock Purdy, Pitts, in 2 seconds. This is a super flex. So without knowing too much context of other than what he gave us here, is this enough? Really, this is the question. Did Tyler get enough that he sent away Jamar Chase? Purdy, Pitts, double PPR, and 2 seconds.
I think considering the format, he got enough. Now, this is one of the types of like when you're giving up stuff. Now, in this format, Pitts can be an elite player for you. Like, so this is basically you're making the bet that in this format that Kyle Pitts and the divide between Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase is not big, or maybe it's non-existent this year because of the format. So with that, I don't hate this bet. The only thing I'll say, and especially because okay, so if you need the quarterback position and you need the depth and stuff like that, like I'm fine with this. Totally.
Who doesn't need a quarterback in Superflex? Everyone needs a quarterback.
And I would say the only knock on this trade would be that when I'm taking in a truly elite player at the tip top, and I'd have to see like what's the scoring differential between the top tight ends. Like if this is making the bet that Kyle Pitts is a top 3 tight end this year, if that divide between him and Chase is not that big based off of the scoring format, then this is a home run.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a little bit bigger of a divide, then I think the only problem I would have is when you're splitting an elite asset into multiple different pieces, I'm more likely to go with the split it into 2 players, split it into maybe 3 players is probably getting a little bit thin. But this type of return, I mean, you're making the bet that Pitts becomes an elite player, and if he does that, then you're smashed him like you crushed this trade.
Right? Yeah. No, I mean that is crushed. But even if he's like tight end 8, I mean, think
even
about
if he's okay and not great. I mean, still you got a starting quarterback, top like 12, 13 starting quarterback in Superflex ranks,
who's going to get paid and have insulation.
Yep. So like the other part is like if you turn those 2 seconds into a first, then I mean, then we're really cooking my gas here.
Yeah. And think about this. Like if Pitts has 70 catches, which is a solid but modest season, that's like 140 catches for a receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It's the 2 PPR is, I think people still undervalue the tight ends. You could start, I have a 2 PPR league where I start Laporta. I got Laporta, Kincaid, and George Kittle over some like good receivers. But anyway, thanks, Tyler, for the question. And sorry that I almost lulled you to sleep there, D-Bro, but I got to the meat of the question. He gave us a nice super chat, so I wanted to give him a full read there. All right. We were talking about Circa. Next time you go out there, definitely go to Circa Las Vegas. We go there for the RotoWire trip every year. They treat us real well. And the reason I want to tell everyone, they have a draft experience where they'll pick you up from the airport in a limo from your flight. They bring the whole crew out there. They set you up in a cabana. They have like personalized blackjack. You'll have your draft board. I mean, it's a whole thing. So circalasvegas.com. Awesome. Yep. All right. We're talking about rookies that you hate, but we love. I don't even know if we've done that, but we're just going to keep saying that so the title matches the content. Chat GPT titles, you know? So, yeah. Anyone else in the first round that you've avoided of these? Like, Jayden Daniels. I saw you put out a couple posts on your social media platform formerly known as Twitter. That's what I call it.
Yeah. Still call it the Bird app.
Yep. You're right. You remember the eggs for the profiles that didn't have
Oh, I do remember that. I do.
Yeah. Yep. Nice. But Jayden Daniels, for or against, let everybody know, and then let them know why that is. And I actually, you know what? A better question is what's the upside, but I want to hear the downside case for Jayden Daniels if you can muster that up.
I mean, I think everybody's already making the downside case. Like, look at where he's going in Superflex, like startups. Like, he's still not even a top 12 quarterback. Redraft circles, people are still not ranking him as a top 12 quarterback. Like, I think the downside case is being made by everybody and anybody with a mic and a set of rankings.
And what do you think? But what is the predominant narrative for his downside? What, that he's not an NFL?
He's going to get hurt. He's tiny. Pressure to sack rates. Like it's the same. And everybody, it's the same tired crap, man. Like, it's like we're going to recycle the same 2 or 3 clips that we have in the chamber about him getting blown up, running the ball, and think that that's every play and he's going to get hurt. And I'm like, oh, okay. You believe that there's a certainty he's definitively going to get injured because he's a running quarterback, but then you're going to tell people that like you like running quarterbacks.
Take Anthony Richardson in the first round, man.
Well, I mean, yeah, but that's the point. It's like they cherry pick the narratives. It's like, okay, well, he's not big enough. Okay, you do realize he's the same size as Lamar Jackson,
Oh, I
right?
didn't realize
But
that. Interesting.
but you have Lamar Jackson ranked as what, a top 3, top 5 dynasty quarterback, but you don't like Jayden Daniels. Oh, okay, just making sure that we're staying consistent on our cherry pick narrative. So my whole thing with Jayden Daniels, it's like he's got the rushing upside. We know that. He got top capital. He's going to an offense that's going to run a crap ton of plays. We've seen a rushing quarterback put up top 5 seasons almost immediately in that offense. And, oh, guess what? He's also a really damn good thrower of the football. Yeah. Why do we not like Jayden Daniels? I just keep fighting it, man. Like, I don't get it.
Let me ask you this.
Don't get it.
I see Malik Neighbors and rookie drafts go ahead of Jayden Daniels very often, more than not, like 60-40 to
in Superflex?
In Superflex. And again, I've done about 14 to 16 drafts. And to me, it's like, you know what? Yes, I see that. But I also, Marvin Harrison, like 95% of the time goes ahead of him. So start with Neighbor. Actually, lightning answer, then we'll come back and talk about, would you take Jayden Daniels and Superflex over Marvin, or is that a little bit more 50-50?
It's 50-50. I think that comes down to team context. Like,
that's fine.
QB
then,
room is stacked.
How about Neighbors then? So Neighbors sounds like you're a little more surprised.
I'll take him over Neighbors. I have Jayden Daniels and Marvin Harrison Jr. in their own tier.
Okay, so then that's team need. But if you're, let's say you have Josh Allen and Jared Goff as your 2 main quarterbacks, would you take Jayden Daniels? And let's say that you have 3 receivers you like, but obviously Marvin's going to be an upgrade because you don't have the 3 top receivers. He's probably, 5, 6, 7.
Who's my quarterbacks? You said Goff and who?
And Josh Allen. Like you're more or less set. Would you take Daniels or Neighbors? Sorry,
I would. It's a good question.
Because people are in that situation. That's why I'm asking you.
I would probably take Daniels in that situation, and then my next immediate move would be I would be trading Jared Goff for a wide receiver upgrade.
Right. So I think that what you're saying here is actually very important. I want to underline it. Is take the guy who's going to have more trade value in 6 months, 8 months, right? I mean, Malik Neighbors, even if he's solid, let's say he comes out 6 for 70 and a touchdown, 5 for 70, no touchdown, right? Like that's good start. But if Jayden Daniels comes out and has 250 yards, another 60 yards rushing, 1 rush, I mean, if he comes out like Anthony Richardson did,
if he comes out like producing top 5, top 7 quarterback numbers, then everybody's going to be eating all these bad takes.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's almost no way Malik Neighbors after 8 weeks is going to be the #1 overall wide receiver. I mean, I guess it's possible, but it is possible. We saw it with RG3, right? That's the easy comparison, right? Because we visualized him in a Washington uniform, running all over the place. I know it's a different player, but number 2 pick, right? There's a lot of parallels there. Benn Sinnott, where are you now? He doesn't seem to be getting a lot of there's some love out there for him, but man,
shut up about him. So
okay, good. If he was really loved, he'd be going in tight end premium and much earlier than he is. So why do you love Benn Sinnott? What's a reasonable upside expectation?
I don't understand why people don't love Benn Sinnott. I mean, he checks every box that I care about emphatically. Like we want high-end tight end production and athleticism are just they're hand holding. They're melded together with tight end. You have to be a high-end athlete to produce and be an elite tight end option in fantasy. And that's what I don't really understand. It's like, do people not really understand that Benn Sinnott is a top shelf athlete? Because I've been fighting that the entire time because people like, oh, well, he played fullback. Well, actually, he didn't really play fullback. He did a lot of blocking, and he's really freaking good at it, which you need to add that into. I know that doesn't score us fantasy points, but as soon as he gets the role, he will be a full-time every down starter because he can freaking block. So he's not coming off the field. But I want to go back to the high-end athleticism. Benn Sinnott went out there and tested like a madman. 81st percentile 10-yard split, 96th percentile 3-cone. Broad jump was 94th percentile. Like, what we want out of tight ends first is to check the box of high-end athleticism. Benn Sinnott does that. Then he gets the draft capital. He goes in the freaking second round. And if anybody out there thinks that they drafted a fullback in the second round, you need your head examined. And then you also look at the analytical profile for him. He checks all those other boxes emphatically there. Like Benn Sinnott last year was 9th in yards per route run and receiving grade. He was 4th in missed tackles forced. He even popped in yards per route run versus man coverage, was top 15 in that metric. So literally it's check, 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 check. And, oh, guess what? He's also got a clear path to playing time. The only player standing in his way for that is Zach Ertz. And, okay, so do we think Zach Ertz is playing past this season? No.
This is an older Zach. I mean, this is a post-injured,
Yeah, so. Like, why do we not like Benn Sinnott? I don't get it, man. Like, so, like, for me, we were talking about Brock Bowers earlier. That was the best conversation and the best reasons not to draft Brock Bowers this year in rookie drafts was, why am I drafting Brock Bowers in the first round when I can trade back and I can get Benn Sinnott? And I can tell you, he's got better quarterback play automatically. He's got a better scheme because you can miss me with anything Luke Getsy. And he's got he is in the same talent phylum as Brock Bowers. I'm not saying he's exactly as talented as Brock Bowers, but he ain't freaking far off, man.
Yeah. Now, it's often mocked when they say, oh, trade back, but that's a trade you can really do. Like if you're at 108 and Brock Bowers is there, people are going to be shoving each other out of the way to get that pick. And if somebody has the 204 and some maybe like next year's first, that could get done. And if you need a tight end, sure. I mean, you can.
To your point, and I just want to, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I've had these ranks up on fantasypros.com since the post NFL draft. Benn Sinnott, and this is just in Superflex. So I'm not even premium this ranking. I have him at 15th overall, so the 203.
Right, and you'll get him there. You'll get him there. The earliest I've seen him go was
every draft.
Right. The earliest I've seen him go was 204, 205, and those were in like super premium leagues. Yeah, I mean, last year, if somebody would have told you, hey, trade out of Dalton Kincaid to go to Sam Laporta, you would have looked at them.
Everybody. Well, you remember the narrative was last year, Alan, none of these tight ends are good enough to go in the first round of a rookie draft. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And now you see how well that aged. It's like, yeah, they're both top 3 Dynasty tight ends. How you feeling about passing up on both those guys now? Oh, you didn't want to pay the first round capital. Okay, that aged great for you.
Because in years past, it hasn't worked out. There's a ton of Eric Ebrons, and TJ Hawkinson finally hit, then he gets hurt, right? But that was not looking like a great pick ahead of AJ Brown for many years, right? He was going at like 108, AJ Brown dropping to 110. So that burnt a few people, and I think people are slow to understand too, that the NFL is changing. Rookies, like, they've come around on, well, now wide receivers are just hitting the ground running. And it's like, you do realize the tight ends are now doing the same thing in a lot of aspects. And then it also comes down to, you can't put every single player in these wide sweeping brushstrokes that people love to make and say, well, rookie tight ends have never done that until they did. And well, rookie wide receivers didn't do that until they did. And then they did, and they did, and they did, and they did. And then everybody's like, well, crap, now I have to change my stance on that. Right. Do you remember third year wide receiver breakout narrative? That was from like 10, 12 years ago. Now it's,
I do.
Yeah. Now you wouldn't even think of drafting and redraft a rookie receiver 12 years ago.
Marvin Harrison Jr. would have been going how many rounds later than he's going?
Right. Wide receiver one, Julio Jones, his rookie year was like being drafted in like the 12th round or something like that of redraft, of course. Yeah. Very interesting point of view there. The rookie quarterbacks, I'm assuming you said Jayden Daniels, you like Caleb, not much to talk about there, but Maye and McCarthy seem to have both sides of the case. I mean, they're still good super flex picks. So let's start with Drake Maye. I can't help but think about when the narrative that he's going to a bad landing spot, it's similar to how we were talking. When I say we, everyone that loves Dynasty fantasy football, right? Exactly. There you go. Was talking about Houston last year. So Drake Maye, why do you like him, and why does everyone hate him? He falls in these drafts.
I like him. I don't love him.
Would you take him over Rome? That's the question.
Over Rome?
Yeah.
No, I'm not taking him over Rome. I have Rome right ahead of him. I have Rome at 6th overall, and Drake Maye's in 7. I have Maye in the tier.
That's a real choice that people are making in rookie drafts.
I would take Rome Odunze because I think he has elite upside. I just think he's an alpha. So,
get back to Drake Maye here, because that's a player that sometimes falls past Jonathan Brooks. It's unbelievable to me that you can get the third pick in the draft of the real NFL draft, a QB that's locked into 3 years of starting at the 109. That usually doesn't happen unless it's Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I don't dislike Drake May. Like I don't love him as much as maybe some other people. Like I don't see as much of the rushing utility translating. It feels like a very similar case, and I'm not drawing just loose, shirt tail comparisons here, but I heard a lot of the same things about Sam Howell when he came out. Oh, his rushing ability will translate and stuff. And I'm like, I didn't see it then. I don't see it now with Drake May. Like, will he offer some rushing utility? Like 300 yards maybe a season. Maybe he cracks 400 in one of them, possibly. But I don't look at him as like we're going to get a lot of rushing out of him. And I like Maye, but I don't love Maye. I think Maye, the best part of his game right now is his deep ball is absolutely just beautiful. And he's going to have high-end weeks. I still think there's a lot of things with mechanics and decision-making that he has to clean up, especially mechanics-wise. And so I'm hoping that he does sit a lot in his rookie season. And I think depending on, like, what have we seen out of freaking Jacoby Brissett? Like, he's played really stinking good when he's gotten opportunities last time. So, like, you don't talk about guys that could sit maybe the whole year. I think that's a possibility for Maye. That doesn't push me off the talent or doesn't push me off. Like, again, I have him at the 107 in my Superflex rookie ranks, but I think that there are reasons why I have him behind other guys. Like I don't think that him and JJ McCarthy are in the same tier, and a lot of people have hated that.
There's a question here about that. If you're on the clock, is it JJ or Maye?
No, it's JJ. It's easy, JJ.
All right, that's an easy one. All right,
and this isn't just landing spot. I've been pro JJ even before the NFL draft. Like, I just think he is a better quarterback.
Yeah. Some of our guys over at RotoWire seem to have referenced the rushing upside. They think that Maye could run for 550 yards. I mean, let's assume he started day one. I mean, obviously, if he starts week 8, then this all goes out the window.
Yeah.
So what is it? Why don't you think that here's a better way to phrase it. What is it about his rushing style that you think might have a little bit of trouble of translating to the NFL? Obviously, with Jayden Daniels, we know that's going to translate, or we're confident in it. So what is it specifically? Is it that he's a slow runner? Is he, you tell me.
I don't think he's hyper athletic. Like, and that's probably not like changing anybody's expectations, but like when you turn on the film and you watch somebody like him or Sam Howell run, they're not explosive in the open field. Like, he's more of a straight line guy. He's not going to make you miss a lot of different times. And it feels like it's more of a fallout of the offense that he was in. And I mean, honestly, you can draw the parallel of him and Sam Howell of when Sam Howell got all the rushing production in North Carolina. It was because the rest of the offense was terrible around him, and they had to manufacture production and first downs and offense some way. I think there is an easy case to be made. Like, dude, his wide receiver 1 last year was Tez Walker. Like, that should tell you all you needed to know about like what the offensive complexion looked like for North Carolina and the skill set weapons that he had last year. So again, going back to North Carolina, they had to produce offense some way. And a lot of times if it's like, okay, we can make plays with his legs, he's athletic enough, but he's not a special runner, then sense. I don't necessarily think like Maye is not a guy where he goes into the NFL and I think any offensive coordinator is going to say, okay, we have to design plays for you in the run game. We have to get you in RPOs. We are going to design 3 to 5 QB runs on a weekly basis. Like, could they do that? It's possible. Is there a prerogative to do that based off of how athletic and how skilled he is as a runner? That's where my divide is.
When you were a young kid, middle schoolish, were you told that you were a beautiful speaker? I mean, you're very clean with your speaking. You have a clean.
I've always been told that I had a really big mouth and I'm loud. I never got the clean part of it.
Yeah, no ums and ahs. I'm still working on that stuff. You're
well, some of that I've drilled a lot of that, or tried to drill it. I'll still get the knows and some ums every now and then. But when I first started podcasting, not to bring us back here, Alan, but you brought it up.
I love this stuff. I could do a whole podcast on this type of stuff. Keep going.
I remember when when I first started podcasting, I did it in I had my desk set up in our master bedroom, and it was facing a wall, and I would go back, and I still do this to a certain extent. I would go back and listen to every show that I did, especially in the early going, and I would write down all the things that I hated about what I was saying or how I was saying it. And I'm not kidding. Like, I put up posters in front of me and it literally would say, "Don't say, you idiot." Like, I would put like a list of things. And as I'm going through, Because a lot of those things, when people say those on a show and they say, or they say, or they say, it's your brain trying to catch up with your mouth. And all you have to do is either just slow your speech down and take a breath and allow your head to catch up with your mouth. And those will kind of just taper off.
Right. And I think having a good podcasting partner, a good host is part of that too, because sometimes, and you've done this, especially in your podcast journey, you're podcasting with people and you feel like if you don't get it out now, you're not going to get your opportunity. So when someone that you're podcasting with, just like a partner in life, makes you feel like you're going to have your chance. But also as a speaker, I always tell people you want to be a generous podcast partner and make your point succinctly, efficiently. And I think all that's tied together. I was just noticing you're a very polished podcaster. I hear all the stuff you do, but when I see, forget content, because content is, we're all going to have our different stuff. I love what you do, but it's always nice to work with somebody who is a polished podcaster.
Oh, too kind, Alan. Too
Yep.
kind. I would never string those words together. You did. I appreciate it, but I would never string those words and my name in the same sentence.
Yep. Humble non-brag. What's your favorite task that you have to do over at Fantasy Pros?
My favorite task?
Is it yapping on the mic? Is it writing articles? Is it interacting with certain people?
Live streams like this. I love the live stream format just because you never know where the conversations are going, and it's not like anything else. It's not like a pre-tape. It's not like anything where you can go back and you can fix a take, or you could say, oh, well, let me restart. Let me try to do that again. Like, you either can kind of flow with it and you can do it, and it's awesome, but not everybody's awesome at live streams. I freaking love live streams. Like, that's probably my favorite thing to do always. And it's multiple levels, whether it's, we're not prepping like anything. We don't have a show sheet for today. Like,
I hope you don't mind that, right? I'm a
no, I don't mind that. Like, I'm fine with just riffing and going with it. And that's another thing why I love live streams, because you're just going with the vibe of it, and you have to be willing to like either lean into your own personality. And I mean, that I just hop on the mics and I can't be anybody else but being me. So that's not really like something I have to like worry or struggle with. But I just love the live stream aspect, because you never know. Every show takes on its own life, and whether it's an inside joke or a joke you make during the show and it kind of keeps going for the rest of the show, every show has a different look and feel to it.
I put out a tweet maybe, like 6 months ago talking about like no show sheet and it was funny.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I get the other side of it. Like, some people just feel comfortable with that. And so it was just meant as like something like, you don't need it. I know it was for new podcasters. Like, it's nice to have it, but if you're someone that can ebb and flow, it's okay. Everyone's different.
Yeah. Everyone's different. And I think there's a certain amount of, I think it also depends on how well you can work off of the fly too, in the sense of like, I always have a second screen when and this kind of goes back to like just office setup and things like that. Like, I always have a second screen and I'll pull up a few different things, or I'll have tabs open. So like, if I'm looking over to the side during a show and I want to reference certain stats, like I could pull up a few different articles, go Control F real fast and pull up something while I'm live on a show. Like, all the stats I'm rattling off about Benn Sinnott. It's like some of those things I know and I have them in the back of my mind. Other things, if I want to get back into the nitty gritty of things that I've written, you can go pull really quickly if you can do it, and while filibuster with your mouth while you're kind of looking stuff up too.
And that's what I do is when I feed you a player, I'm talking a little bit more. See, this is inside baseball, how the sausage is made. I'm talking a little bit more so you could pull up. Let's demonstrate for everybody, and then we'll let you get out of here, right? Yeah. So, Derek, Caleb Williams, he seems to be a popular pick in fantasy, and, his upside is, it could be quarterback one, but what do you think is a more realistic projection for someone like Caleb Williams? Now, just to show, I didn't need to say all that, but while D-Bro is looking up and then he rattles off.
I mean, you look at Caleb, could he be the QB1? It's possible, but you don't necessarily believe that. Like, it comes down to the fact that the talent is there. You look at his stats, and I can rattle off.
Right. No, I think we made our point. We made our point.
Good.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was good. Yeah. That's how podcasting is made. All right. Anyway, you follow him as I do at @DBro_FFB. That's Derek Brown over at Fantasy Pros. What's the one thing you're working on right now you want everyone to pay attention to?
My big redraft opus is already out. It is live. My perfect draft article is live. The Fantasy Pros redraft kit is already live on the site. And in that article, it's about 12,000 words. And I run through 75 plus players and literally every round of drafts, 20 plus players in late rounds. That's already live right now. So that's really my big heavy lift where I really try to give people the keys to the castle, like who I'm targeting. You can use it for redraft, you can use it for best ball. And the dynasty circles, I dropped my top 5 dynasty startup values at quarterback, running back, wide receiver went out today. Tight end will go out on Monday. And my dynasty must-haves. So I think I have 25 players, and that will drop next week.
Yeah, no, I just read your 5 values. I love the article. I actually read it twice. Once while I was making a duty this morning in preparation.
Well, and that's where all of us do most of our research, draft all of our best ball teams. Like, again, you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, a lot of good reading and a lot of good research is done on the turlet, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
All right, you follow Derek as I do at Dbro_FFB. Just a couple notes for RotoWire listeners. You're seeing this on our main RotoWire page, but we are breaking off a fantasy football page. So if you're watching this on the main page, you can go into the video description of this and click on. We just started up. There's only a couple hundred people over there right now, but Jim Coventry is pumping out videos on there left and right. So follow that. And then also, if you want to get a free look behind RotoWire's paywall, it's rotowire.com/pod, rotowire.com/pod. Put your email, paywall unlocks. D-Bro, you did it, baby. We appreciate you. I thank you for giving us your time. And we will be back, everybody, next week with another Dynasty Fantasy